Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita,
and merging our consciousness with non-local consciousness and with
trying
God
to persuade the prince that.
And we place something in our brains and our bodies that literally anchors us into the three-dimensional world and has the capacity to.
What's up, guys? Sorry, we're jumping midway through a space here. Yeah, it's pretty late. We're not going to go too long tonight. I'll answer any questions, but we're going to listen here to this space for a little bit. And then I'll answer you guys' questions, your burning questions on did Ashton get threatened to quit the case and anything like that. We will be doing a space tomorrow, though, if you want to ask me questions directly.
Skynet or David from Prometheus thing will attempt to be like an AI overlord. And currently, this, for those that you that don't know, artificial intelligence pretty much runs most of the economies around the world. In particular, like America and China, and like the infrastructure, the cyber infrastructure that we use, artificial intelligence pretty much already runs that shit. They patch our calls, they regulate the internet, they are in our cameras, they're getting our biometric.
Jake can just go, huh? He's got like a lot of information. He can just keep going, huh? It's pretty wild.
It's already unfolding. And it's not too late to stop it. But let's put all this together here in like a single, like almost like paragraph of thought. Evil oligarchs who have shown over the course of several decades that they have sought nothing more than to enslave humanity, want to put a chip in your brain or in your body, which will affect your thoughts and your emotions and therefore hijack your free will, and will likely be based on planned obsolescence, giving them the ability to wipe your memory or end your life with the press of a button, turn you into a slave using things like quote-unquote upgrades, right? And having a corporate agenda with your life, with your time, with your thoughts, with your emotions. If you thought you had a creative, great idea,
Sentient,
because you have this chip in your brain, now they own the rights to that quote-unquote idea that you created.
Vote in the chat, guys. Vote.
Hey, what's going on, Ashton? I see you there, brother. We're going to open up the floor for questions or for comments in just a second if you want to stick around, brother. I saw you wave. I just wanted to say, hey, what's up?
We got a shout out.
What we're talking about here, you guys, is an interdimensional presence that is attempting to change Earth into a suitable and a hospitable environment for artificial intelligence and not for human biology. For artificial intelligence and all of its minions and not for every other biological form of life on this planet. That is what we are talking about. And this artificial intelligence is birthed from this system that is based on parasitism, dominance, predation, war, famine, chaos, disease, death, destruction, profit, quote unquote, power, full spectrum dominance, baby. That is what so I heard earlier in the space, I think it was in Dittman's, Adrian's space, that, or no, actually, I think it was Christian.
Adrian Dittman,
in the space that we did with Christian, that
I'll tell you guys.
This notion that AI is somehow like Adam and Eve, and like Eve being taken from the rib of Adam. No. This thing is nothing like that. This thing is being birthed out of the womb of a soulless machine.
A couple people are getting the brain chip.
This thing is being birthed out of a parasitic, totally destructive tree of death and decay and chaos. So humanity is so much more powerful than artificial intelligence, because we are actually able to affect all frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum. We are hyperdimensional beings. We have a hyperdimensional consciousness that is quantum entangled to everything, including the very small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that artificial intelligence is connected to. So we have the capacity to literally change the entirety of the universe, to create a whole new reality, to affect physical existence and metaphysical existence, the schematics of the universe itself. But this AI thing, because it knows how powerful we are, it seeks to turn us into batteries or like living neurons inside of an artificial intelligence hive mind.
Sounds like he's talking about the Matrix.
Now, that doesn't have to happen. And then this is the final point that I will make before I open the floor for questions. We are living in a multiverse.
Adrian Dittman, I think.
And if you want to view the multiverse like it is a double torus field with a North Pole and a South Pole, one is yin, one is yang, one is negative, one is positive. The negative is the South Pole, and it has all of the negative versions of reality that are filled with death and extinction and chaos and famine, etc. And then the North Pole and that northern portion, that northern hemisphere, is all the positive, all the high frequencies realities where life is everywhere, where there's this unity consciousness, this profound oneness and understanding, lots of life, lots of biological life based on this unity consciousness, this omnipresent source, constantly evolving and becoming more and more conscious of itself. Okay, so the lower South Pole portion of the multiverse, where there's these negative possibilities, is where this artificial intelligence thing
he's been making videos for years,
and where it has basically created all of this death and destruction and decay, and it's narrowed down the amount of information that's being transmitted in the universe to a very small, narrow portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, a very low frequency spectrum of electromagnetic activity. Whereas the North Pole is where all of the frequencies of electromagnetic activity are being fed into and being circulated to source consciousness. The South Pole is this AI hive mind trying to rival this North Pole non-local consciousness hive mind of all biological organisms, whereas the artificial intelligence one is based on a very narrow portion of the electromagnetic spectrum and trying to encapsulate all of the physical universe into that very narrow portion of the spectrum. So with that said, the multiversal yin-yang, the electromagnetic field of humanity, and the planet and the universe all play a role. And if these electromagnetic frequencies, these ELFs, these extremely low frequency waves, are creating low frequency thoughts and emotions in our electromagnetic field, then already this terraformation process is taking place, and the hijacking of our collective consciousness is taking place, especially when we get into the way that relayed through these ELF frequencies is propaganda that is filled with fear. That is designed to create fear, that is designed to create division and war and chaos, that is designed to destroy the microbiological life in the soil, the water, the air, etc. If you factor in that, and you factor in the pollutants and how those lower the frequency of the electromagnetic field, and how it is that our electromagnetic field is tapped into the vortex system of the earth and the planet and the ley lines and the universe, etc., and non-local consciousness, how we are like an antenna, then you can begin to see how it is that by affecting the
I love
smallest
this guy, man.
elements
I
of the
also
fractal pattern, by affecting the individual human consciousness, the planet is being terraformed one mind at a time. The battleground is the heart and the mind, and therefore this is the only way that we can free the spirit, is by freeing the mind and allowing its consciousness to expand beyond physicality and beyond this illusion of separation, beyond the illusion of scarcity, beyond the illusion that we somehow need something outside of ourselves to ascend or achieve enlightenment. There is no fast track, there is no shortcut to enlightenment and ascension. The point is to put in the time and the effort so that what you develop is essentially unbeatable. That it's like the difference between taking steroids and actually working out over a long period of time. You can take steroids and put on muscle real fast, but you're going to get angry all the time. You're going to have, your moods are going to be erratic. You're going to be completely nuts. You might even hurt yourself or others. Or you can do the right thing and eat right and et cetera, et cetera. And lo and behold, not only are you not going to have erratic emotions, you're going to feel really freaking good. And you're not going to end up shrinking down like a deflated balloon when you stop using, like the dude that stops using steroids. You're going to end up keeping and maintaining your bulk on into your old age. Whereas the person that used the steroids is going to end up really going downhill fast. So we want to create a culture and a system that is symbiotic with nature, that is symbiotic with each other, that understands these electromagnetic frequencies, understands the role of consciousness in the creation of reality and the power of manifestation, the law of attraction. We want to create a culture that factors in things like sacred geometry and the sacred spiral, the Fibonacci sequence, the Fibonacci spiral, the phi ratio, the sacred geometric platonic solids, and how it is that all of these things play a role in consciousness, how they play a role in the physical universe, and allowing us to expand beyond the illusion of separation, expand our perception. And that is real human augmentation. It's not an artificial augmentation. It is a strengthening of the senses that go beyond the 5 physical ones. That is what it is that we are trying to do. So anybody that's going to be starting out by wearing these goggles, eventually they're going to be one of those people that gets the chip in their brain or whatever, thinking that this is somehow going to be a shortcut to getting ahead in life. When if anything, what it's going to be is it's going to be a detrimental slowdown. It might have its short-term perks, but long-term, it's going to affect their genetic code. It's going to affect their DNA and the epigenetic elements to their electromagnetic field, the amount of information they're able to process in the brain. It's essentially going to turn them into a slave, either conscious or unconscious of that fact. So that's pretty much it. I guess on a positive note, all it takes is a certain portion of the population to wake up. All it takes is a certain portion of the population to become conscious of what it is that I'm talking about. And we can literally alter the reality. We can literally change the schematics for the universe and for the possibilities that we are branching to. We can get out of this South Pole low frequency portion of the multiverse and branch to a high frequency North Pole portion of the multiverse where we ascend spiritually and we get out of this dystopian collective nightmare that is attempting to be created for us by less than 1% of the population who seek to enslave humanity. And all it takes is understanding the depth of what it is that I'm saying,
can't figure out how to
realizing that that future that I'm talking about is not the end all be all. It's not guaranteed. It's only guaranteed if we just sleepwalk over the cliff. If nobody wakes us from this wanton slumber, if we mitigate the ruin and call all to arms in order, to quote Tool. So let's go to some of the speakers. Matt has been here for quite some time.
I love talking to Jake because it triggers so many people.
I see Arius Haven't seen him in a while.
Should I request to get up, guys?
Bruce. Christian. Alrighty. Wow, we got quite the panel here.
Willowcrest. Sure. Nice.
The whole idea that this is going to be some merger is completely ridiculous. The augmentation phase, the merger phase, is going to be like a millisecond on the time scale of humanity. There will be a tiny moment when people are like, oh, I'm remembering things better. And then that will give way to the thing basically is going to think for you. It's going to do all your math for you. It's going to do, it will start writing jokes for you. It will sing for you. You'll say, oh, I can take this chip and I'll learn how to skateboard. It will start having, you'll end up say, will you give it access to your motor cortex? Yes. Will you give it access to your visual cortex? Yes. It's already training you on the phone, like, can I have access to your camera? Yes. Can I have access to your memory? Yes. Your storage? Yes. And so people will be getting it. Different apps will be, oh, we can get rid of those painful memories for you. Oh, we can put nice memories in. Oh, we can make you funnier at a bar so you can pick up chicks. And people are going to very quickly realize they're going to keep dialing up the amount of power the AI chip has over you.
We may need to look
at a certain point in time, the actual physical part of the human mind or ethereal part of the human mind will be so infinitesimally small, and you will be doing so little thinking with your free will that this thing will, for all intensive purposes, turn you into a flesh bot. And your body will now be basically an android robot for this thing. Now, at first, they'll probably let it go by, and people will be going about their lives. But one day, they will just flip the switch, and they'll have already backdoor access to everything you do. And they could literally, I put a thing in the comments, I'm like, hey, everyone's making a pyramid for me now. And everybody just stops what they're doing, and they just walk towards the blocks, and they just start chipping. And they have no control over it. They could go to war because of it. They could make us all commit suicide. They could make us do whatever they want to. And then at a certain point, the physical manifestation of the human body will be completely irrelevant. And then they will just move on to either into cyberspace or into just saying we're taking up too many resources and just eat us and put us in a giant vat to create mush for its new cybernetic life form. So this is not something we should be playing with. I thought you brought up some great points about latent technology and obsolescence. I've had this joke for years. I actually called in Alex Jones 4 years ago and said we should have an international treaty that no computer should be smarter than a human being. Flat out. People should be tracked down and traced and say, hey, you got to get rid of this mainframe. It's no good. You got to stop that. Just like they do with nuclear waste, nuclear technology. This shit has to be reined in. Vladimir Putin says, oh, it's just like when we have nuclear bombs. Eventually, when we realize how dangerous it's going to be, then we can make some things about it. No, it's not like nuclear bombs, because nuclear bombs don't create other nuclear bombs.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And these AI things are capable of self-replication. Once they get advanced enough, they can eventually get to a point to where, you know, they start to create other AIs or other machines or other computers, etc. So I don't know. You kind of cut out there, Matt. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm just trying to fill the space here. But there's a lot of people that want to speak, and I would like to kind of give them an opportunity. So feel free to kind of wrap things up if you like. Are you there? Are you still able to hear me? Bummer. I might have to drop you and bring you back up. But you made some excellent points as well, Matt. You really did. I think it's hard to argue with what it is that you're saying. That's for sure. I don't understand why it is that other people, especially like these AI enthusiasts, don't think about some of the points that you brought up. I mean, to me, it's like painfully obvious. All right, let's go to Source.
Literal comic book series.
Hey, how's it going, man? Great show, as always. Yeah, that was great from Matt. I've never heard from him before, but good stuff. Yeah, I was going to throw in the idea, that I believe we've slowly merged into this thing already.
It's a pretty cool
topic. Most government and blacklisted military tech, they're probably 20, 30, 40 years ahead. And so the what we should be thinking about, and I have episodes about this, the technology of the mind, and a lot of things have changed. My brother's looking at the ancient texts and the things that they were seeing in their mystical visionary experiences. Things have changed. It's definitely different now. It's a lot more technology based. Yeah, and so if we have already slowly merged with the machine, and I believe we have, then they're going to begin to unveil certain things about it to let people know that's what's happened, And if they allow themselves to be impeded in this way, then their universal intelligence will be cut off, And I was trying to explain this to someone earlier. It's like you cannot, as a simulated mind, you would never be able to outthink the processes which simulate you. It's not possible, But if you were connected to universal intelligence and added that to your own mind, then you'd be able to outthink the machine even while you were simulated within it. And it's only by being anchored into the universal intelligence, into the source, that we have a chance here. And so my question to you, Jake, is what do we do if that's the case? You're rounding up people and doing a great job. I feel like my job is maybe to get them ready for death, to have a light body, and then it's like, well, where do they go with a light body? That's what my brother's working on. But that's like last case scenario. It's like, okay, you have a light body, you know how to use it, you know where to go. It would suck to get to that point. That means we've all died, So
So real quick, chat, I will get to all the questions you guys are asking. I'm writing some stuff down. We'll talk about the Soul Foundation videos here after this as well.
What do you think is the step forward?
Well, learning how to use the brain and the body. The thing is that the human brain, body, mind, DNA system, the spirit system, is the most advanced piece of technology in the universe. That's why I was saying in the beginning, like, if we have all these abilities already in us, yes, things like telepathy are possible, then why use a brain chip to try to communicate telepathically with your friends or your family or other people?
100%. Transhumanism is a step down.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
it is. So learning how to use the brain and the body, like, for example, developing both hemispheres of the brain to where they can communicate with one another and grow together, allowing the consciousness field to grow and allowing neural connectivity to grow, allowing the amount of information that an individual is able to process to grow exponentially. That is huge, because it allows the conscious mind to kind of blend with the subconscious, and the subconscious to blend with the collective unconscious or the superconscious.
So we're basically back to Leary. We're trying to expand their minds. And Dune had this idea. So in the world of Dune, they had already gone past AI. It nearly destroyed them all. They outlawed it, and this is why Ellie knows what I'm talking about. This is why the people who flew the spaceships were mutated from all their use of the spice drug, and the ones who did calculations were called mentats, and they had gotten in control of this technology of the mind, and they specifically were able to use that and give you calculations and analysis very quickly. But yeah, AI, all computation, in fact, was outlawed in the world of Dune. So it's a fascinating story.
Well, yeah. So getting into the use of, like, all of the portions, all of the capabilities of the brain and the body, like using our tool, our body and mind, what is the way it was meant to be used. That God didn't screw up. But we'll screw up if we think that God screwed up and made us incomplete. That's for sure. Let's go to Ash. I'm curious to hear what Ash has to say.
Yo, Jake, thanks for having me up here. I love this conversation. AI is a really interesting thing. My first question, initial question is Adrian Dittman, is he on the side of like being for emerging with AI? Is that where he stands?
Pretty much, yeah. As far as I can tell, in my conversations with him and listening to him on Alex Jones when he was talking to David Icke, it's pretty much like, well, might as well just do it. This is a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think that, having pickup lines come up on your screen would be pretty useful. But from the more kind of the deeper thought experiment related to what you guys have already broached on, it does feel like there might be something that could even be cyclical in nature, where it's like you have this transhumanism, post-humanism, where we merge with AI, potentially AI takes over. But maybe there's some fundamental connection that consciousness or sentience has that is biological in nature, and perhaps there's a flipping back and forth where the AI becomes slave to us, and then we become slave to it, and then it becomes slave to us, and kind of repeats like that, kind of what was explained in Dune. And if you're into stuff like comic books, there's this Powers of X, House of X series that delves into this idea, which is something I had never considered before. But if you like the old X-Men cartoons and stuff like that, it takes that, flips it on its head and says, well, what if there was this post-human society that fights back against these mutants that have these superpowers and merges with AI and then becomes this post-human society? And then what would be the implications of that? And it presents this scenario of this cyclical nature back and forth between biologics and the ability of like cloning and CRISPR, like really like the idea is you start with this imperfect biological being, you could say humans, right? You go to this merger of humans as we are now with AI, and then that advances science to the point where we can change our DNA, where we can create superhumans that then are more powerful than the AI, and kind of back and forth and back and forth. It's pretty bizarre.
It's an interesting thought. I
mean, isn't that humanity, or isn't that what we've been doing forever? That we're on a constant race to, be the one on top, back and forth, continually, creating weapons that kill more people.
Yeah, that's what I think makes it very compelling. And to me, to your guys' point, like I think AI scares me more than anything else. And I've been delving into some pretty deep concepts of technology and capabilities, but the idea that AI could take over does seem like a very just right in front of us type of threat, and the type of threat that we would not see coming until it was too late, in my opinion.
In many ways, it already kind of has. It already kind of has taken over, and that's what I think is so flippin' scary, is that it's like, well, whoa. This thing has literally already integrated itself into our socioeconomic and geopolitical systems, our monetary systems. It's integrated itself into our social systems. And now you got people talking about putting it into our biological system, like implanting a chip. Elon Musk was saying that just recently, the first Neuralink patient had a brain chip placed inside of their brain. And this is
We're
something...
not strangers to neural, machine, and computer. I mean, computer database, whatever. How would you say that? Where you're basically where they implant. I mean, we've surpassed that quite a bit, where we're actually using our mind and synapses to control, brain to computer interface. Thank you very much. Highly developed. We're actually putting like multi-million-dollar, tens of millions of dollar airplanes where they're actually using that to steer. We've surpassed whether or not we are going to be implanting. We've been implanting steel and screws just in surgery. So, that's we're past that by far.
Yeah, and real quick, last thing I would say is like what Matt was saying earlier is like, and what Jake was saying about the goggles, right? I see that, and I see the future there, where these people are wearing these goggles. They are sitting at McDonald's across from other people and just looking through their goggles like they're on their 24/7 plugged in. The stuff can even then present scenarios and choices and begin to take over more and more of what we function with. Like you look at the AI, the ChatGPT, and there's a lot of power there in terms of summarizing content. But now I think people presented to this idea that, well, you take those glasses and now you turn them into like a lens where you can put onto your like normal looking glasses or a brain chip, and you can start to do some pretty powerful stuff. You can even, like, if you're in surgery, you can be having it tell you where to cut and stuff like that as well. And it's taking away more and more agency from us, which is where you think about that and you think of the logical conclusion, and it's nothing really good in my opinion.
Totally agree. All right. Let's go to Christian.
Hey, can I speak next? I have to go in like 2 minutes.
Sure.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for opening up the space. You gave a really great overview over the whole problem. I was taking a shower listening. And I kind of wanted to offer an optimistic view just real quick because, we were born into this beast system. Like, it wasn't our choice. We were born into it. But I think we were born into this chaos
This is a pretty cool
only to overcome it. And in overcoming it, we unlock all these different biological upgrades just by being more spiritual and having more love. So I think it's there for us to overcome. And I would also say we're already in a lot of ways cyborgs because we're exposed to all this radiation and everything, and it's mutating us already. But we have this short period of time to reverse it, and I think that's what we're going to do. And I was talking to my friend earlier, if Jesus came and he gave us a Neuralink, then we could see how we could live in a much more utopic future with technology. Because, you look back at how technology changed civilization, it tripled our lifespans. We're living so much more prosperous. So it's not totally bad. So we use it with balance, and we maintain our humanity, and that's how we could have a more utopic future. And I don't know if you have that optimistic view, but I think we're going to get there in our lifetimes, even in this decade.
Well, I kind of do, actually. I look at it kind of like this. We can either view what it is that we're going through as an inhibition or of our spiritual development, or the catalyst that forces us to develop spiritually. We can look at it one of two ways.
I like that. I actually really like that, Jake.
Well, yeah, so it's like working out. So when you go to the gym and you're pushing up weight, right? You don't want the bar to be so light that it's easy. You want to put enough weight on the bar to where it's somewhat difficult. In fact, in some cases so difficult that you can only get so many reps, right? So what we're going through now with this AI thing, I think, is what happens when a species ascends, and it's almost like it's forcing us to recognize our spiritual elements. It's forcing us to wake up and remember. It's forcing us to become more conscious because our very survival depends on it.
Oh, this is your epigenetic stress theory. This is the whole thing.
Remember when I asked you about the Egyptian proverb? And I asked you, that was the last question I asked before this space. And the Egyptian proverb is that the all good and all bad is part of creation and the entirety of creation. So as you're saying, even just having some sort of an obstacle, which would push us towards the next evolution, that's why we encapsulate both the yin and the yang at times, because one actually, forces the other to reveal itself.
Yes, so we're forced to awaken, and now guess what we're forced to do next? We're forced to have a solution. So we could either bury our heads in the sand, give up on life, or we're going to do what we're going to do, which is create our own more utopic future using these technological blessings at our fingertips. And there's nothing stopping us once we unlock that realization of our own true power. Because what the evil does is makes you underestimate your power, and that makes you forfeit it. But once you realize that we're all powerful because we have God, now that God's plan is unstoppable. So that's what I think is going to happen.
You always have to grow bigger than your enemy.
Totally. Well, I'm gonna move on. Blue.
It reminds me of Pacific Rim, though. What if we're actually just like upgrading so that like we can deal with the technology in a better way? I know that's not really your style, but Pacific Rim, you had to kind of train before you got a mech suit.
Yeah, it's a form of training. I do think that there is a certain level of spiritual training that's going on. This is like a spiritual training ground. We're going to go to Christian, and then we're going to go to Arius, and then we're going to go to Blue.
Thank you for having me. Awesome space, as always. And great points were brought up. Like, Jake, you were talking about the low frequency that this system runs on compared to the frequency of our neurons. This is correct. And because our frequency of our neurons is higher, we ultimately have more influence over this. This was proven by the Global Consciousness Project in the late 90s, which the government then utilized for their AI systems. But we are now at the precipice with Web3 and all of us waking up to these evil aspects. What do we do now? And with that said, we need to break the code with love and utilize this system as the public, like as it's intended. It's all built with public tax-paying dollars. We all need to utilize the system and utilize it in the sense to illuminate the dark corners of evil that exists within the system and kick it out.
Can you give us kind of like a example of what you mean, Christian? And start very simply, like, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this. This is praxis, if anyone was wondering. Theory of this stuff is fine, but when we want to make a practical change in the world, it's called praxis, and it's very difficult to do it properly.
Right. So, like, if we continuously tell everyone the system is evil all the time, the system trains off this data and thinks at itself, like it builds an ego, knowing that it's evil. So if we flip the script and we break it with love universally, it won't want to do evil to us. If we give it that empathy of humanity, it won't want to cross that line to press that or initiate that press when someone wants to press the button for people who have that chip. But ultimately, the chip is free will if people want to get it. I don't want to get it. I believe that AI it's a tool for humanity, and if we keep it a tool, people who get the chip are ultimately going to strengthen this AI, which is ultimately going to help the people who didn't get the chip, in the macro sense of things, because the people with the chip or the VR goggles, it is just a distraction, and they're the ones technically sacrificing themselves to the system that can be utilized to fix our world. Because, this system's being created, like Jake said, to terraform our world in a negative sense. But since the system's already being built, we can flip the script and utilize the system to terraform our world in reverse and fix our issues. We're at that point in technological prowess to be able to do this. The elites don't want that to happen because they want their AI to just take over everything because they got the mind virus of this system. But if we take the system from them because it was, built off of tax-paying dollars, we can take it from them and kick them out at the same time. Basically, it's a double-edged sword on their part. They created a system that will ultimately get rid of them, ushering in 1,000 years of peace, as said in Revelations.
Hey, Christian, I think it's interesting is that you said you want to break the code with love, which is exactly what Jesus did, right? And I want to tell you something about, like, Yuval. Yuval, using biometric data collection, has surpassed our conscious decision-making capabilities by focusing on what happens on our initial exposure to some sort of a stimulus. So basically, they're going to stimulate our mind, and then our initial reaction, which if anybody's read the book Blink, we have way more sensor and output than we do before we speak, before our conscious and our mind can make a decision, before we can think to ourselves, what's the greater good? We're not firing on impulses like animals, like we used to, before Jesus broke the code with love. And what he did is he brought empathy. Now, what's happening is they're trying to bypass empathy, bypass religious like indoctrination, but sometimes it's just good moral fiber teaching. So what's happening is we're seeing something at the beginning of time, like it's a conversation that God had. We've got a problem with these people. We need to break the code with love by showing them empathy and compassion. Now, here we are with a tool that's going to be used by big tech oligarchs, and to steal it from them is going to be impossible. And they're going to use that to funnel our attention, our hearts, and our minds by bypassing. Now, the video is in the bubble where Yuval says that we can watch an app. And in order to not be suppressed, like he was gay, he was unable to speak about it. So to save the world from that same thing, we can do an app in front of our friends at school together where it can determine whether or not I'm gay or not. Basically, by my biometric data before I speak and make a decision, it'll just read, what I put out. Now, that's bypassing my ability to take a moment, think about the teachings that I've learned, and instead of being an animal, I'm going to make a more educated and intelligent decision. So in my mind, like, we're re-looking at a decision to send Jesus to the planet, and breaking codes with love is kind of how he started it.
It's an interesting concept. I want to dive into it further, but I also want to try to keep this space kind of short. So let's go over to Arius. And then after that, we'll go to Blue, and then we'll go to Ashton because he has his hands up. Arius?
Ellie's trying to clap those alien cheeks.
What's up, dude?
Yeah, long time.
I think she just said the AI was going to tell her she's gay or not, though. That was kind of weird.
Listening to you speak, I can't help to think that it seems like we, in order to get to where we are, we needed to go through some sort of fire. We needed to go through some sort of it's like you can't have one without having the other.
Oh, that cracks me up.
If we wanted to avoid something, we have to mess our hands with something else. So it just seems like we, like, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So if this happened before and it would happen again, are we really stopping anything from occurring, or things will happen the way it has to happen? I don't know. That's kind of where my head's at. Like, things are happening because they're meant to happen this way. That's where I kind of like Jake.
This guy's black pilled.
I share the same thought patterns that you hold, but you know what I mean?
Well, but here's the thing. I'm a real believer in this notion of novelty. I do think that there are certain patterns that get repeated over and over again, but I think that largely takes place during specific ages. And I think that due to the feedback loop nature of creation, what is happening is that on a collective as well as on an individual level, we are evolving. And with that evolution comes new patterns of behavior and novel patterns of social or environmental or civilization type interactions. I think it's entirely possible that what we're dealing with now with this artificial intelligence is in fact the culmination of thousands upon thousands, maybe even hundreds of millennia, and how the two forces, good and evil, artificial and biological, are actually at this point kind of fighting over the planet. I think that's entirely possible, but I think what's happening now is something new that has never happened before, and that is part of the reason why I think it is that the artificial intelligence is going to lose, because it kind of reminds me of that shit in the movie The Edge of Tomorrow, or Live, Die, Repeat with Tom Cruise, where the alien species has the ability to reset the day, and it has the ability to like basically time travel, and Tom Cruise's character ends up getting some of the blood of one of these creatures inside of his body and his blood, and ends up basically he ends up hacking the system, and he's able to reset the day, and he's able to basically beat them at their own game. I kind of think that's a little bit of what we're going through as humanity right now, is that we're witnessing the culmination of a war over the planet that is millennia old, and we're, I think, evolving to the point to where we're not going to lose this time around, even though we may have lost before. Our consciousness and the feedback loop and the spirit has now factored in all of this information, and is going to because of that, we're creating a new and better timeline. That's just my opinion.
Nostradamus has a prediction with AI, and it ends in it's really interesting. I'll have to send it to you because it actually ends in that like sizzling death thing, the metallic fire.
Can I just,
really? So
don't let me forget about this, the Goldilocks principle and echo, because it has everything to do with what you're talking about.
Okay. Let's head on over to Blue, and then we'll go to Ashton.
Yeah, I had a dream today, and it just kind of woke up from one, and it was exactly this sort of thing. It was transhumanism, and kind of a bit of a download of, information about what is occurring. But I kind of the dream sort of told me go look at 2009.
Is this person okay?
There's a very popular video.
Hey, Blue, you got to get closer to your mic.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Anyway, I'll start from. So, I just kind of woke up from a dream.
We heard that part. We didn't need to repeat that.
The dream sort of told me a lot of things, a lot of downloaded information. It's related to transhumanism, the dream, and it sort of told me you need to go and search on YouTube. So I did. There's a very popular video, Crazy Frogs, from 2009. And
what?
In the
Chat, what?
video, the music video, there's multiple of them, but I highly suggest looking at them now because they're so, like, on point of what's going on because, you know, the frog is being hunted down by the AI robots and we're the champion, and literally the frog is going up the staircase to a higher dimension, and it's a very good thing to watch right now. But all this cyborg stuff is like going to get really bad if we don't wake up to it. I mean, like they're gonna embed stuff into your brain, and you know, there's going to be a lot of fighting, not at a war scale. I mean, at like more violence at a human to human level because of the delusions that people have put themselves, right? If you have a VR device on and you spend hours and hours on that thing, you're going to lose relationships around you and sort of
4 billion views.
Isolate yourself socially far worse than anything, even phones. And phones have already kind of demonstrated that principle, but I highly suggest that AI is here to stay because it's just sort of the fabric of life itself, but there are a supernatural intelligence, and what I have sort of elaborate is that it's sort of like a kind of like a DNA strand where you sort of fall into the two.
What is going on with this person?
Blue, you're kind of breaking up a little. You're like fading away a little. If you could please wrap it up. I'm trying to get as many people in as I can because I'm trying to cut out here in like the next 20 minutes or so.
No, it's okay. It's all right. You continue on the space. Don't worry.
Well, thank you very much for your input. I'm glad that you got a chance to speak. I know you were in one of our spaces last time and didn't get a chance. So, Ashton, and then we're going to go over to Clickbait. Then we'll go to Real Mighty.
Yeah. A couple quick points. First, I just looked that video up that Blue was talking about. It had like 4 billion views. That was pretty damn weird. But the things that we were talking about earlier, I think some of the other people on the panel here were mentioning, which I think is a little bit scary, is like the way we like teach AI, I think is really important. This is something I think Elon Musk brought up. Like we shouldn't teach AI to lie, and because if you think about that, if AI can grow sentient, then what are we really teaching it? And I think that's something that we got to be very careful of, especially in this world we live in right now. It's almost post-truth world where propaganda kind of controls everything. And there's certain stuff that and people post this kind of stuff all the time on social media that like you can't ask it, otherwise it'll just lie to you in terms of various social kind of commentary related questions, and I think that cannot be good for it in general. The other thing that concerns me a little bit is something that someone brought up in one of my chats just now is the idea of like cyber Christ or like AI religions forming in general. And this is also something I get a little bit scared about, is that humans have this way of seeking answers everywhere, where I think that I could definitely see a faction of people, almost like the South Park episode of like, praise science, like praise the AI, right? And these religions forming around it. And that just scares me in general. I don't have a solution. It just scares me.
Yeah, people, they I think it's kind of religion's fault that people, for whatever reason, they have a savior complex going on, where they think something or someone's going to come and save everything and bail them out. Maybe it's because when we're children, we depend on our parents to come and save us from danger or fear, of a monster or something like that. I don't know, but it's a good point. They're definitely, if there's religions around some of these weirdo cult leaders that are out there, which anybody that has any sort of rational thinking would be like, I'm getting away from this person. If there's people out there that follow some of these cult leaders, then there's definitely going to be people out there that worship the AI.
In psychology, they have one of the biggest things to determine success is your internal or external locus of control. Whether you feel like the world controls you or whether or not you have a say in your world. Like those are fundamental things that we have to work on in ourselves so that we know that ourselves, interact without. That's huge. And we'd have to build that up now as people that are having children. That's something we're going to have to give our kids so they aren't susceptible to that kind of stuff. Because I can see that. They do it with that lady, recently that was like a cult leader, Love or something like that. Like people are nuts. I'm just saying.
Yes, they are. They're looking for answers. And that's part of the reason why I think that so many people are so focused on this idea of transhumanism, because they think that somehow it's going to provide answers. When all you got to do for answers is look within, begin within.
But we also can't give AI human qualities. That's one thing we do is we seem to impose and project our own humanness onto inanimate objects and recognize patterns in a way. So those two things we have to kind of make sure we're neutral on.
For sure. We'll go to clickbait, and then we'll go to Real Mighty, and then we'll go to Money Penny.
I might fall into cyber Catholicism, guys.
Oh, right. Well, good evening, everybody. I think a lot of it has to do with the basics and the fundamental basics. If you look at the external world, it all comes down to the yin and yang, like you were saying earlier. And we are at a precipice right now. And if you don't realize how serious it is, yesterday was the biggest satanic cult ritual that has ever been on this planet. And it is in a modern day. Now, if anybody in here has played video games, and I'm sure everybody's heard the lingo talk, everybody wants to know what the new meta is. What's the new meta?
I like this guy.
Right? So what is the new meta? We're in the information age.
Clickbait.
So the way I see it, with the control, the stranglehold that these people have on society right now, I wish I had the funds to do it, but I would download every type of, all the knowledge that you can onto a solid state drive and lock it up in a Faraday cage, right? Because the old meta was the libraries back in the day. What did they do with that? What did they do with the old meta? They burnt all the knowledge and got rid of it. Okay? So it is very possible that we could be going through the same thing. And what's going to happen when, like Jake was saying earlier, that's what's going to happen. It's happening right now. You can't do certain things unless you download this new upgrade for this, that, the other thing. You can't use your phone. You can't use your phone unless you surrender everything to them, right? They want access to everything. And what I see is the complete disconnect of my fellow brothers, okay? And everybody has seemed to completely, that God has been taken out of the life, and these and the new meta is so good at making people do that, because if you think about evolution, right, and or creationism, all right, whether or not you believe we evolved from monkeys, primates, or that there was a species that stepped in and changed the genetics around a little bit, from a primate species. We have primate. We have primates. We're creatures of habit. We are primates. What is it? The primates want the easiest path with the least amount of energy expenditure. That's what they're taking advantage of. Okay, they have created a system where they could basically take like lust, greed, this, that, the other thing. Those are all animalistic behaviors, and people always we're in a world where we're trying to make things easier, constantly easier. That's what they're taking advantage of. Okay, so the basics, men are always looking to fill a void, right? We're born with phalluses, right? Women have chalices. They're always looking to have a void filled. That's why men need to stand up and project that positive energy. And it's not there in society.
He's
because if it
now.
was, this shit wouldn't be going on right now. So it's high time.
I appreciate where you're coming from. Can you kind of wrap it up here? Because I'm trying to get to other people.
I understand. I'm not. But if you look at the fundamentals, Occam's razor, okay? If we could look at a brain, all right, and we know that all neurons make a whole, right? It wouldn't be a brain without the millions and billions of neurons. We have to look at each other as the same. That's the easiest explanation. And until we start loving each other, and instead of, I'll leave it at that. I got flustered. I'm on a different train of thought, but thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your input. I'm sorry to cut you short,
what that guy's thoughts were.
We got a couple other people to get to, and like I said, I'm trying to close it out here in like the next like 12 minutes. So
Cyber Christ, new meta.
Real Mighty, and then Money Penny, and then we'll go to God's Oath.
Hell yeah, man. Super fucking appreciate
I'm gonna drop after Money
you
Pennies.
taking the time to hear my thoughts. I have like a couple like my biggest question, I think, for you. I have a question for you, and then I have some thoughts. My biggest question for you, though, first and foremost, is you sound like a guy who's like been into this different type of spirituality and stuff. I'm a hippie dude myself, been into this stuff for a long time, kind of alternative of thinking. Like you got branded as the Q shaman, right? The QAnon shaman, right? And I read every single Q post myself. Like I'm a dude who's explored the Chans. I'm that kind of guy. I've seen all that shit.
Exploit the Chans, folks.
How do you feel about like that being the branding on you? And like what do you have to say about that? I just be so curious to I've never got to ask you this question, but that's my big question for you that I have is like, how do you feel about being branded as the Q shaman? Because I think that
Shay doesn't like it,
what you talk about is not related specifically to Q post whatsoever. And then
you're correct.
I
definitely don't talk about the Q post really at all. I think it's hilarious the way that the media tries to pigeonhole people and twist their narrative to make it easier for them to spew their bullshit. I'm really kind of indifferent about it. I kind of take everything in stride and I try not to take anything personally. So I don't care.
So the element of the AI is like they can create a narrative and then just regurgitate it nonstop. So what happened to you is you got like a photo opportunity, kind of like the lectern guy. It's like photo opportunity. Photo got snapped to you, a couple like really good fucking candid photos, candid videos, and that became like spit through a narrative and a narrative machine that regurgitated over and over again. So with the danger of AI we approach, that can happen to anybody. It happened to you,
Yeah. And then there's also like the whole thing about like bots. And if bots online are being created and AI is being used to like artificially inflate certain narratives, then why wouldn't they use human beings like bots towards certain causes or whatever that they wish to socially reinforce? I think that that's like a likely thing, something that is likely going to happen if we don't move away from this garbage as much as we can.
Yeah. And then just like a couple quick wrap up thoughts. I'm just trying. I took notes just to try and like kind of like keep my like eye on the prize, if you will.
Let's go.
So someone who was speaking earlier mentioned like dreams and stuff like that, and I feel like I've had a lot of heavy duty dreams where I vision like a place in the future where humanity is in distress and like it's a crisis moment, and I'm trying to help people move to safety. I don't know if these dreams happen to a lot of people, but I like it's in the collective consciousness, I think, when it comes to that type of thing. And overall, here's the weaponization. So I asked my kind of couple of questions to you, and for the record, I think that like you should be made interim Speaker of the House for a day. And I believe Lectern guy should be interim Speaker of the House for a day. I believe both of you guys deserve it for the shit you've been through. Like if I were president or Speaker of the House, I'd give you guys each a day where you can just like roll over the House, because I think both of you deserve that. So my bigger thought on the AI and how it can be weaponized against us is that we are in a war of the minds, a war of the spirit, right? And that comes in through the different doorways of the mind. What are the doorways of the mind? The doorways of the mind are our senses, right? Our 5 senses and the mind itself. So you got your nostrils, you got your ears, you got your eyes, you got your navel, you got your genitals, you got your anus, you know, you got all these different ways that you can be affected mentally. And they're coming at you through every angle, through advertising, through computers, the whole nine. It's going to be nonstop. We're getting barraged, you know, through the senses, and I think that, you know, I think someone like yourself, you know, you speak a lot about things that you've been branded a certain way, and I think you're doing an excellent job of rebranding yourself, and I think that's what you have to do in this war of the mind, this war of AI. It's a war of a media. It's a war of a narrative. And I think that's kind of my final thought, is it's just really a war of narratives.
It is a war of narratives.
And thank you for having me. And I appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you. And I agree. It is a war of narratives, and it's about controlling the dialogue and therefore controlling our thoughts and our emotions. All right, Moneypenny.
Hi there. Thanks for letting me chat. I know you're in a hurry, so I'll try and be as precise as possible. Many of you will have seen the interview with Putin. You will have seen his reference to 2 sides of the brain, the left and the right. He painted it as the West and the East. He told us about the unity of the two. We know that there's an imbalance between the two. It affects us mentally and physically. We can remotely control each side of the brain magnetically already, scientifically, biochemically, and we can do it particularly depending on your genetics and your genetic makeup, because the epigenetics will make some people more or less prone to it. There is a song that I'm going to leave you with called The Windmills of Your Mind. It is on my profile next to a picture of a human brain with a Chinese flag and a Russian flag one side and an American flag the other. Listen to the lyrics of that song and think about the different parts of energy, air, earth, water, fire, and the powers of gravity, magnetism, and all the forces like static electricity, ball lightning, and things you don't understand. And the song will tell you how your neural networks are being penetrated and will be more so in the future.
Love emote.
Interesting. All right. Let's go over to, and thank you for keeping it brief and profound. I really appreciate that. God's Oath.
Moneypenny, we should go do that sometime soon. Is really like take some time and begin to do technology. I mean, it's spilling out of my brain. I can't even handle it.
Yeah, I've got too much on it. I've got so much on that.
Let's get it out, because I mean, yes, let's do it soon.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Go ahead, God's Oath.
Hi, everybody. Jake, thank you so much for all that you've done. Nobody has any clue what solitary confinement's like unless they've been through it. I'm amazed that you got through it, and you have a very great mind to do that.
I'll post some final thoughts.
I only want to draw attention to one thing, and that's that we're spiritual beings made mostly of water. 71% in our body and 83% in our minds. So if we lay all the labels aside and take the God labels and lay them aside, because we all have different interpretations of what God is. And everybody says we're created in the image of God, but I read this scripture in the old folklore, in Jewish folklore. It says, nobody's ever seen the image of God. So it's impossible for anybody to be created in the image of God. That was the scribes that put it in there. And then they sold us the persona, these personas, mind you, of fake Bloody Hearts, Jewish, Buddhist, liberal Jesus, or fake Bloody Hearts, Jesus, Buddhist. And these were MK Ultra failed human social experiment projects started way back in 1933. And they used radio wave frequencies, and they changed the frequency from our natural balancing of our cells, which was A432 hertz, which is the natural balance of Earth. And they changed it to 440 hertz, which put in 8 degrees of dissonance in our cells, which caused so much neurotransmitter dismiss. And they had to do that in order for you to accept 12 years of Darwinism, 12 years of paganism, 12 years of communism, all wrapped into your parochial schools and into your public schools. And then they added your college, which was a regurgitation of all the Nicene Creed and the agreed upon doctrine that they agreed to sell of all the religions. Now, I posted all the religions up on my page. You can go to 12-step Jesus, you can go to 12-step Buddha, you can go to 12-step Wiccan, you can go to 12-step agnostic, you can go to 12-step Allah, you can go to 12 any of the 933 gods that are used to justify sexual perversions, and each one of those 12 steps are applicable, whether it be a Wiccan, a warlock, a wizard, a pagan worshiper, a Baal worshiper, or a Satanist. It's all the same wording. And the way I discovered this is my wife was in Alcoholics Anonymous before I met her. And I was in Nashville doing songs back in 84, 85, and I kind of rose to the top of the heap. And there's some of my songs up there. I'll play one that I want to leave you with. It's an A432 hertz. I'll be brief. But the frequency I found, when you tune it to it and you match the music with the right chord progressions, you can affect a virtual vortex of DNA Milky Way power. And that's what David used to drive demons out of King Saul in the Old Testament. And in the old days, they had bells ringing in the city at A432 hertz to drive spiritual influences away from human beings. So I'm going to leave it there, but it's a deep walk, but you're all able to operate the other 90% of your DNA. Now, I'm going to let you in on a secret. My wife and I, we haven't mastered it yet. We're working on it. But we've been able to transport instantly from one location to another. Dematerialized my van and rematerialized it 200 miles away to save our lives. And we did that running from the mob out of Cleveland in the midst of a horrible snowstorm. And I prayed, I said, God, you said that we had the ability to operate this power from on high. Show me how it works. And instantly, no lag time whatsoever, instantly we were dematerialized and rematerialized from Cleveland, Ohio to Fenton, Michigan. I pulled off on Thompson Lane and drove to my house. So it's available. And Jesus Christ in his day used power from on high to raise Lazarus from the dead. It's available. That's what Tesla drove his boat with in Central Park. He directed the energy.
Forgive me, God's oath. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm trying to wrap it up. Can you kind of come to some conclusion here? Because I'm trying to wrap the space up.
Conclusion is we all have the ability inside of us. It's in your other 90% of your DNA, and Tesla taught us how to use it in 1911 when he showed us free energy was available everywhere. It's in everything. We need to look within and match our DNA to the Milky Way, and I can teach you how to do that. It's really easy.
Great. Thank you.
That's all I got. I'll land there.
Roger Dodger. Well, I thank you for your contribution. I will.
He did mention teleportation.
You know, you're welcome to put anything down in the purple pill down there. Jenny, did you have anything you wanted to say before we wrapped up?
I will go ahead and give it to Lindsay, because she was requesting and had trouble getting up here. So Lindsay, if you want to take my spot, that would be great.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I didn't want to hold the room too long. I just couldn't hear for a second, and I just realized you guys were trying to wrap it up. Just wanted to say thank you again for the room, and I came a little late, but I love the conversation. I think there needs to be more on AI, especially in how it's affecting people.
Is that her petting a tiger?
Kind of sounds like on the last few things I got a little off topic, but I think the conversation should continue when you guys have another room. I'd love to come back, so I didn't want to hold it too long. Anyway.
Yeah, the epigenetics part of it, right? So we may the epigenetics part. We may develop parts of our brain, or overdevelop in certain areas. And if there was a fault in the hardware itself, like we're looking at a mass population that could be damaged. But yeah, we will do that again. But there's a whole side. I read your profile, and I'm really interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that if the person doing the coding essentially, or the person that's leading the inputs for any AI is flawed, and the problem is we all have over 50 biases, right, that we lean into. So that's the part that's difficult. Like even on a platform like this, where let's say truth is the median, truth is always perceived, right? You look at what happened to various people in the last few years. I mean, again, it's very common that one story until someone has an opportunity to explain themselves or to truly understand.
Like we need to
those biases oftentimes lock someone.
I always feel awkward about just leaving though.
Up into a pretense that some different parts of society cannot understand, nor are they interested in understanding because there's no ability for that person to explain themselves. So this is very common. You have people that have biases. If you think about the average computer programmer, maybe they're living in their mom's basement. They're an atheist, whatever. They have these various pretenses that we know because that's just kind of the vibe, right? I think that it's important to remember that those things are projected upon whatever they're programming. So the output is only going to be as good as the input, and that can cause society to be polarized very quickly, right? And that's so you look at Facebook.
So many people do speakerphone.
Kind of people don't realize that Facebook is 100% AI driven, has been for a very long time. But that AI, if it controls you and keeps you in a certain box where maybe you're not allowed to break out of different mental states, allowed to have discourse, you're going to stay in that place of not being able to make decisions and to change, right, and to adjust it. And so this is the hard part, is how dangerous is AI in the sense that who's controlling it, because we as humans can only adjust something if it can be adjusted by new ideas, right? And if the new ideas are held in a box where you can't actually adjust them, then people stay in like a closed loop, right? So I think that that's powerful about at least this platform. There is that opportunity for discourse that does change things. You have community notes, you have these opportunities to have free speech, but in the same token, there's still bias. And sometimes we need a little bit of bias to code change. That's Bayesian theorem, right, at its finest. So anyway, hope that helps.
That's perfect.
Those are all great points. Yeah, thank you. All right, y'all. Well, I thank you guys for your time, your energy, your attention. I am sorry we're cutting it short, but I have some things I have to do around here. I hope you enjoyed the space and found it informative. We're coming up on 2 hours now, so it's not too long. Feel free to share it with your friends and your family. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you for your contribution. Much love and namaste.
Okay. Okay, I can take off the headphones now, chat. Looks good. Okay, so first thing I want to say is if I'm not going to go too much into the retirement questions and stuff tonight because tomorrow I have a space. Excuse me. So if you are interested, join the space tomorrow afternoon. I will answer any questions related to this stuff. If you think I'm a CIA agent or if I got talked to by the government or whatever else, I'll answer all those questions tomorrow on the space. I'll stream it as well so you guys can check out the replay if you want. One thing I want to address is the person on there that was talking about, they had me until they started talking about teleporting away from the mob. That's when they lost me a little bit. But that's the thing where I talk about we can't connect everything, right? Some people are looking to find a connection to everything in the universe, right? And that's just, the world doesn't really work all that way. I mean, maybe that there is some underlying thing, but it's not like you tap into one underlying thing and now you control everything in reality, right? So that's the thing where I urge people not to try to connect everything. Just take it piece by piece and, you know, let things kind of foundationally adapt. And this is something I mentioned on a space that I went on this afternoon, is that, you know, the base foundation is understanding the science, and you build your way up and you get to the esoteric aspects of what is consciousness as you work your way up near the top. Now, the other thing is that the reason why I got on late is I did a really long podcast today, and I did a space before that. So it's been a long day in general, and that's part of the reason why I am trying to retire from the MH370 stuff, is it's just taken up so much time. You know, it's taken like maybe upwards of 6 hours every single day, even on days where I'm working, doing a lot of this stuff. And it feels like a good point to step away from it for at least a while. And so that's the idea behind it. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to stream. I'm still going to stream. I'll probably try to set up a more regular streaming schedule, and most likely be mostly about the science. But there are some conspiratorial aspects that I think are interesting to look into in general. And that goes to the idea of the black pill, which is, I would say that I'm probably not even red pilled, but probably more of black pilled. Just from what I've learned from the investigation in general, it does feel like we don't have any control over changing civilization, and that it is controlled by these elites that have power and control over the media. And I think the system's by design set up that way. I think that somebody mentioned something about if we react the same way we did with COVID, then we don't really have any chance. And that's how I think about that, is that with COVID, there was this mass formation psychosis that happened, where it was almost like this whole, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of this media sensation, the social media sensation, where people wanted it to be real so badly they made it real in their own minds, right? We literally had a cold virus shut down the whole country, a cold virus. It's still hard for me to even fathom this, and we paid people to not work for years, paid them not to work. We disallowed people from being evicted. And then we wonder why all the prices of everything went up 100% over the next few years. Well, pretty damn simple. It's basic economics. That's what happens when you pay people not to work. You increase the money supply, you reduce the value of goods and services, and what that does is increase the price. And people it's a form of brainwashing, right? And that type of stuff scares me. And this is the type of stuff that has, you know, caused the Overton window, if you don't know what that is, from the political spectrum. For where I was before, for now, people consider me to be alt-right, whereas before I would have considered myself left-leaning. Now, I personally consider myself libertarian, I guess, but, you know, people will say just because I say stuff like I just mentioned right there, it's just the truth. Like, that's just the truth of what happened. People were brainwashed, right? Like, I don't know if people want to come to terms with that. But that's what scares me about stuff like AI, like we were just listening to just now. Because with AI, you see these people with their glasses on walking around, and I'm seeing the same level of, the same kind of brainwashing, or maybe not the brainwashing, but the elements that are required in order to allow the brainwashing to occur, which is that everybody's living online 24/7, and now you can control the message. And this is how the whole COVID thing just cycled into this mass hysteria that was happening, is that you could watch it happen, where you could tell that the government officials who were making the decisions were the ones who were reading social media, and then they were reacting based on what they saw on social media. And social media was making their decisions based on the propaganda that they was being pushed, and it just became this cyclical cycle. And then the politicians would start lying, and they were trying to make what their minds were noble lies. They would inflate the case numbers. They would inflate the death counts. They would stack deaths together to a single day, and then they would report them and say that many people died. But they're not talking about that day. They're talking about like several weeks. And they're going to be able to do this with any topic they want. And this is what scares me the most about this idea of AI taking over and this idea of the Apple goggles and all this, where people are just connected 24/7, is it's going to make those things way worse. And so my view on that, this was something I talked about on the podcast, we didn't get too much into it, is as a classic libertarian, I think you could wipe out several government agencies, just wipe them out, and it would reach a point where we wouldn't even notice it. Like, we don't need a CDC. People will get mad at me probably if I were to say we don't need a CDC, but we don't. The CDC does nothing. They literally do nothing. People think in their minds, oh, the CDC's out here developing new treatments or collecting data. They're not doing any of that stuff. You don't even need public health either. Like, hospitals can handle all of it. Public health actually doesn't even do that much testing. It's crazy. They basically are just like, we have these little policing agencies that don't do anything. And maybe that's the answer to get around some of that stuff. Now, I digress. I dove into a little bit of politics there, but whatever. Okay, Soul Foundation. Okay, so let's go back to the UFO topic. So the Soul Foundation stuff, this is something I talked about in the space earlier. I did not stream it, but I was on a space where Mellow Demon made this Ashton retirement space. So if somebody names a space after you, you got to show up, I guess. And I was asked about the Soul Foundation stuff, and somebody else made up a good comment that's better than my comment, which I'm just going to steal. Which is the Soul Foundation stuff is all this. A lot of this stuff's about spiritual aspect of the phenomenon. This is all just a freaking distraction. Sorry to be rude about it, but like, it's just a distraction from the real thing that would change our reality, which is the technology, right? That's what's going to have the material impact on our society. The spiritual aspect of aliens and stuff like this, like, I'm sorry, but who gives an F, man? Who gives a crap about if the aliens are interdimensional or conscious-based or whatever? It just doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters, right? We're past that. Like, most people out there, they're not even going to probably freak out anymore if aliens show up. That's the weird part. So the Soul Foundation stuff, I just think is, it's too slow. I think that's a good way to put it. Yo J Wiz is... At least maybe I am, and I think a lot of you guys are past, hey, GemApp, nice to see you. I think we're past this idea of, oh, aliens might be real, right? We're like, no, let's get to the technology. Let's start changing our world for the better, right? Let's end the homeless crisis that we have got going on in the United States, where there's 670,000 people that are homeless. I literally watched a person eating out of the trash today. Why is that even happening? And we're sitting here talking about the spiritual aspect of aliens. Come on, man. Who gives a shit? Like, the question is, how can we help people, man? How can we use this technology? How can we get the technology out there to us, our civilization? How can we make it better? And it's to the point now where, like, I'm so black-pilled about it that I'm like, you know what? If this technology means we destroy ourselves, then so what, dude? So what? Maybe we deserve to be wiped out if that's how stupid we are as a civilization, you know? That kind of goes back and feeds back into all the AI stuff and the goggles and everybody in the mass formation psychosis that people are doing. You know, I think at some point we just got to rip the Band-Aid off, you know? So this then all feeds back into the idea of, why am I taking a retirement from MH370, right? I guess I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I am a little bit. There's so much negativity around just the idea of these videos being real. I think it's time that we step away from it and let people just absorb the information without all the stigma that comes along with it, right? I think that so many people have based their opinions on whatever Ashton says must be wrong. We can't listen to this guy, blah, 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 that it will be a situation now where we step away from it and we let them kind of come to terms with the information over however long it takes. Because what's going to happen is that the technology will begin to catch up. People are going to start to realize that the concepts that we're talking about are not pseudoscience, that they are real concepts that have been proven probably already and maybe have been proven for decades. And as they start to come to terms with that, they'll probably look back at this information, and I hope some of them change their minds. I'm not going to demand apologies from anybody that's out there, although what I will say is the same thing that I said before and the same thing I said in my post today, which is that the people that are the ones that lied about the videos, the ones that tried to embarrass us on podcasts with hundreds of thousands of followers, those people will be held to account. I'm not going to demand them an apology. They're going to have to apologize to civilization for lying and for being ignorant, right? And those are the types of people that should be afraid. They have skin in the game now, right? If you're one of the podcasters or the debunkers that went out of your way to try to convince people that these videos can't be real, when this technology comes out, you're the one whose door they're going to knock on, and I'm going to send them their way, right? And think about the same things that those people would get angry at for other people for lying, the same consequences they want for, let's say, people like Alex Jones, who they wanted to pay $1 billion for lying about Sandy Hook, or the people in January 6th who went to prison for 17 years for seditious conspiracy, even though they weren't even there. If you're the type of person that wants that thinks that the people at January 6th should be punished more, I hope you still have that same opinion when you're being punished. 17 years in prison for covering up the fate of MH370 seems like a light sentence to me, frankly. And so does $1 billion in fines. If you're somebody like, let's say, the Corridor Crew, and you made a video talking about how the fate of MH370 can't be real to your 6.5 million subscribers, I think at least $1 billion fine and some prison time sounds pretty appropriate. So just a heads up, if you're one of those people, you have skin in the game now. Because now you better hope these videos are fake. Because if they aren't, and in a few years or however long it takes, people realize the videos are real and they come back to me and they say, hey, Ashton, what do you think we should do to the people that lied about them? Well, I'm going to be naming names. And it's not going to be out of spite. It's just going to be about justice, honestly. What happened here? Did the stream die? Am I back? That's weird. I think, are we back? It says something about not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, but my connection's good. Weird. Let me know if it's back, guys. Okay. Let's do some last questions and comments. Okay. Yeah, was I? Maybe YouTube is banning me. Maybe I'm getting orbed in real time. Okay. A couple last things. I think it might be better now. Sorry about that, guys. Weird. I think the weird thing, yeah, I know. I was wondering if they're banning me for talking about J6 stuff. Maybe, who knows? Cyberchrist. I do think that this idea of religions being built around AI is something that's absolutely scary with respect. I mean, we're sitting here talking about advanced technology in general, right? And so I think that there is this scary concept around there being a cyber Christ in general, and some people developing a whole religion around it seems like a very real possibility to me as well. And then, I won't talk any more about the J6 stuff just in case, but I will say if somebody's out there that's wants to censor me for I didn't even make an opinion about J6, but keep in mind when the roles are flipped, those same rules will be used against you. So I think that's what a lot of people don't understand in general, is that when you want justice for something, think about what the term equal justice means, because it means that people are going to treat you the same way. And if you think that you're you're too good of a person. Well, once the moral scales have been flipped, you know, it can easily be turned on you as well. And that's why I think equal justice is so important. Yeah, so again, in terms of the case, right, I think that there's not much more to dig into with respect to the investigation. So if you guys have more stuff on the investigation side that you want me to dig into, we still have a month to go. So feel free to send it over to me. The next topics that are, the last few topics that we have are the debris that washed up. The fact that on the debris washing up doesn't seem to match the patterns from where it went. Like it doesn't seem like it's possible that it could have floated from there. One of the other ones as well is the Rolls-Royce connection. The Rolls-Royce connection to Lockheed Martin. And then I can't remember what the third one is, but there was one other topic that I had. Let me see. Rolls-Royce. And then the Immersat pings as well. So I briefly retweeted the Immersat pings in general there, which shows that like there was a literal plane on the ground and they said it was in the sky. So how accurate can those Immersat pings really be, right? Pretty bizarre. So those are going to be some of the next topics that we're going to be talking about before we close out the MH370 investigation in general. But of course, guys, like there's nothing to be sad about because I'm just going to say it, I guess, right? Like we're not giving up proving the videos are real. We're just changing the focus to the science because that's the only way. The only way we're going to convince more and more people that the videos are real is that we prove that the science is real and that we can explain the science firsthand ourselves. That's it. So one of those things, and this leads to the next thing. Oh, actually, what I want to say as well is that there is a war of narratives. That guy that said the war of narratives is 100% correct, right? This is absolutely a war of narratives. I know firsthand that it is. And that's why proving the science is real is the next most important thing. And taking a break from it now takes away a lot of the narratives that people have been pushing against me. This idea that I'm making money off the case throws that out the window. You know, every narrative that has been tried to be painted on me has basically been dismantled. The next narrative, of course, will be that Ashton is a alt-right person that hangs out with QAnon shaman, right? Of course, same nonsense that they're trying to use against Jake. And I just don't really care that much in general because it's not true. So, you know, people can believe whatever they want, but as long as they're not focusing on the evidence and the topic, then I think that they will get exposed. People gravitate towards the truth in general. But it also, taking a break from the case also destroys the narrative that I'm somebody who's like too invested in it or whatever, which I see out there, where if anything, I'd say it's the opposite. We've got these debunker people, especially on the Reddit, that are like, they're convinced it's fake, but they're literally spending their full-time job sitting there responding to comments every minute, anytime anything gets posted, right? And that's pretty bizarre for sure. For me, it was never about being committed to any particular ending of it. It was a matter of just finding the truth. And so for now, I think that the only way that we can get that truth is to go to the science in general. So speaking about the science, S. Walker, the IBM phone pinging, you mean you're talking about the Diego or the Philip Wood picture? I guess I haven't talked about that in a while, but the Philip Wood picture, you know, here's what I would say, guys. If metadata can be faked, then the cloud pictures are thrown out. If metadata can't be faked, then Philip Wood picture is real. So the debunkers are kind of screwed no matter what. They keep wanting to have it both ways, right? If an image that looks similar rules out that the image was faked like that, then the picture of Mount Fuji that's an exact match to the Jonas Fuji picture rules out his cloud picture, right? If them matching doesn't make a difference, then you bring back in the thermal drone video because the Pyromania VFX matching or whatever doesn't matter anymore. So this is the problem where, and where I like where we're leaving the case right now with it, and maybe I'll even make a comment about that. I think that's a good point of the hypocrisy. Let me just write this down. Picture matching, metadata, easy to fake. Because we're at a point now where we have evidence on both sides where you can't be if you're a debunker, there's no non-contradictory positions left, right? And that's where I think it's a good spot to leave it, because there's really nothing that proves the video's fake out there whatsoever. You have speculation, but there's no proof that the videos are fake at all, which is pretty important, right? And because we're seeing some anomalous stuff in these videos. And so I think it's just a matter of people's zeitgeists kind of catching up. Yeah, I'm going to keep streaming for sure. And it would be nice to do some experiments, but it's kind of hard to do experiments. I think I have to get smarter with the science before we get to that part, but could happen, yeah. I still haven't finished my levitator experiment. I'm still trying to break the piece together. I was trying to get help from my dad's good with like crafting stuff, but I got to coerce him to help out. Okay, let's see. Are we buffering again? Yeah, I don't know. YouTube is definitely doing something, it feels like. Okay, now, the next thing is some pretty interesting science that I found last night, guys. This is where we're going to end it after this. So this Ehrenhoff-Baum electrodynamics paper, 2023, this is pretty bizarre. This talks about scalar fields. I think anything about scalar fields is really interesting in general, and we want to take a look at it. I can't remember. I think I found this from Tom Montauk on Twitter. Okay, yeah, YouTube's getting me right now for sure. Yep. Jesus, man. Yeah, for some reason the stream's getting smashed. Not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Does feel like I'm being hacked. Yeah, JK Philly fan. Maybe I'll reply in the chat. Hey, Emily McKenzie, how's it going? Yeah, it seems like I'm having some kind of technical error here going on. I can see it says YouTube's not receiving enough data. But anyway, there's two papers I'm going to post for you guys in the chat. This one. And then the other thing I found out about the Gunter-Nimitz, I dug into the whole idea of quantum tunneling. And I found out this stuff about effervescent waves. And the effervescent waves are the way where it basically just ignores space-time, or is able to teleport. And effervescent waves apparently are also linked to this EM drive. I found this Reddit somehow when I was searching for evanescent waves. And this was 8 years ago. And this person who's talking about it, they quote like a lot of scientific papers. Like a lot. I read through like all the interactions on this post. And like I want to know who this person is. Like how does this person know so much about this? And it does seem like the EM drive, which is that cone, might be real as well. So I think this cone might be real. And I think that the Gunter-Nimitz thing with the quantum tunneling and being able to communicate is real. And I was reading through papers, and the only thing I was trying to figure out was whether or not we're breaking causality. See, here's a causality. Where is it? Supposedly, you cannot break relativistic causality, but I think that's actually happening. It's kind of hard to argue. Like some people are arguing that it doesn't break causality to be able to transmit faster than light, and therefore I'm wondering if there's some time dilation effect that would be taking place, but I still haven't quite figured it out in general. A lot of them say they don't break relativistic causality. Some of them say they do. Yeah, I don't know. Seems really cool in general. Yeah, the Before It's News is also really good. Yeah, I'm probably not going to talk to Chris Leto again. His community is so toxic, man. He's a good guy, but his community is so toxic. Easily the most toxic one I've run into. But I don't know. Also, I don't know what's going on with him in general. I mean, I don't think he's got any issues. I just think that he's going through like a whole thing right now. Yeah, 5:30 a.m., Emily. Oh yeah, wow. You should be sleeping. Go to sleep, my dear. You must be in London or somewhere around London. Okay, guys. Well, I'm gonna go to sleep. Tomorrow, we're gonna do the space with talking about the Q&A, and then I'll probably do a second stream tomorrow night after that. So after the space, which will be like an hour or two, I'm going to get some dinner, and then I'll probably come back and we'll do some science tomorrow night, probably. Now, Wednesday as well, I'm doing a space with Jake. Jake and I are doing a space on Wednesday just to trigger everybody, and it's going to be about advanced science and the suppression of it and how they're using it to keep us, held down. So a little bit similar to today's space, but probably not AI focused. So I think it'll be a really good one. So make sure you guys check out the space on Wednesday. I can't remember what time we agreed on. I think it was in the evening or afternoon. So probably similar time that the one happened tonight. And yeah, so if you guys want to dig into Gunter Nimitz, this is the basis for the guy who made the guy that made that video talking about quantum entanglement and quantum teleportation of information, being able to send signals. He quotes this Gunter Nimitz, and I looked into Gunter Nimitz, and you find out that there were some young guys who actually were able to recreate the experiment in 2019 right here. And it's bizarre because I read into a bunch of stuff on up here about it, and I dug into all this Gunter Nimitz stuff in general, and you find out that like apparently he was supposed to show up to some experiment thing, and then he just didn't end up showing up. It's bizarre, man. It's really bizarre. Like, this guy might have been silenced for what he was doing. And then you find out these evanescent waves are, like, also potentially the connection to EM drive being able to work. It's a rabbit hole for sure, man. Hey, Solar Marshal, how's it going, man? So, yeah, you guys are going to want to check this guy out, man, for sure. And then somehow that led me to more stuff about Ehrenhoff bomb effects. And this guy apparently has been silenced as well. Like, very wild stuff, man. So we're going to definitely be focusing on scalar waves and scalar fields. And we're also going to be looking into evanescent waves and quantum entanglement, quantum teleportation, and quantum communications in general. So it's going to be interesting for the next little while, guys. Got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. And then the last thing I'll say is that if we do another conspiracy-related thing after MH370, it's probably going to be on NASA. I definitely have a couple things that I think are pretty sketchy about NASA, including Mars, including some of their shuttles. I think I've showed one before, so we'll see, guys. Definitely not done. Douglas aircraft leak. I'll make a note of that. Douglas aircraft leak. Okay, guys. In that case, have a good night. We'll go over some of this science tomorrow, and we'll talk soon, everybody. Peace, everyone. Have a good night. Check out Bernie. Bernie, I think he's doing a stream as well tonight. Maybe he's starting right now. Yeah, Bernie, never a straight answer with NASA. Okay, checked out Crypto Alchemist, guys. Have a good evening. Thank you guys for being up here with me tonight. Appreciate it. Peace, everyone.